Welcome to Women's Sports Weekly, where women's sports happens every day, but we talk about it once a week. I'm Carolyn.
And I'm Danielle. Women's Sports Weekly is a podcast where we discuss the latest news, explore interesting stories, and share our love for women's sports. Follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Women's Sports Weekly Pod. Follow us and rate us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
Also, we just created a Bluesky account at Women's Sports Weekly. So if you are on Bluesky and want to give us a follow, we are just trying to cover all the socials as per usual. Have we tweeted? Do we say tweeted on Bluesky? I don't know.
You Blueskyed?
We fluttered. I don't know. We haven't done any of that yet, but maybe by the time this podcast releases, we'll have some things up on there.
That's very exciting. So I would like to start off, because we didn't get to do this last weekend, by saying thank you to the mystery listener who picked up our tab at the 99ers when we were there watching Unrivaled games.
It made me want to cry.
We didn't know what to do with ourselves when we were told someone bought our drinks. We were like, wait, what do you mean? Are they going to say hi to us? This listener wanted to be anonymous, but we were told they listen every week and enjoy the pod. We would love to meet you. So I wish you came up and said hello to us. I promise we won't bite.
And thank you. That is the nicest thing that someone can do. There's plenty of nice things that you could do for people, but that was so incredibly kind.
I agree. So thank you. Shout out whoever you are. I hope you say hi to us next time.
Our listeners are just really amazing. So you could probably find us at the 99ers bar.
Yeah. But yeah, that was super sweet. I wanted to make sure we said thank you for that. Also last weekend, your family was in town. We did not talk about it just given we had an interview. So if you haven't heard the interview with Frankie De La Creta in our last episode, please check it out. This week, we're back to our regular structured podcast, so we want to share updates about what's been going on with us over the past week. So why don't we talk about your family in town?
My sister, my cousin, and my aunt came into town now 2 weekends ago.
And nephew.
And my 3-year-old nephew, Anthony. And we had so much fun. It was very cold in Denver. We went to the rodeo together, which the stock show in Denver, it's a very Colorado thing that happens every year. It happens in January. We had not been before, but since Anthony was coming into town and we were like, what are we going to do with a 3-year-old? We thought that the stock show would be a great place for him to go. And it was.
Mm-hmm.
He loved the petting zoo. There were so many vendors and there was so much food and things like that. However, we both saw the rodeo and I don't think we'll be going back.
I kept closing my eyes when they were capturing the cows with the lasso, and then they would capture the cow at the neck and then someone else would capture their feet, and the poor cow was trying to run away and then it would just get
pulled in two directions.
Not for me. I don't know if the listeners know, I'm an animal lover, and to see poor little animals get stretched out like that, they're definitely terrified. I just kept thinking about the cows in Kenya and I would go up to them.
Yeah.
And now seeing them in the US getting chased in an arena like that, I really did not enjoy that.
I understand that these are skills that you may need on a ranch, and it felt cruel to watch it for fun and for sport. Maybe there are people out there who have a rodeo background who can shed some more light on this. To be very transparent, like, we eat meat and so
yes,
we're not the most ethical animal people in the world, but we were watching that, we were like, oh my gosh, this just feels like a lot.
Yeah, when you see the baby cow in real form, it just makes it very difficult.
Yes.
I will say, what was it called? The little kids on the sheep?
The kids mutton busting.
Oh, mutton busting. That
is worth a view.
Yes. And that was funny.
And I think it was because it was little kids on sheep. Like, the sheep didn't look so terrified. They just were running across, and they put little kids like 4 or 5 years old on the back of these sheep and see how long they can hold on. And most of the kids could not hold on for very long, but there were a couple who held on for a while and the place went wild.
Yes. Those kids luckily had hockey helmets on, so they had a cage over their face, which they needed because they ate it like face first into the dirt. I was like, oh my, they're just crying, getting off. It was really funny.
The athleticism that these people who compete in the rodeo have, like, their athleticism to stay on a horse, a bucking horse, is really, really amazing. The way that they're able to lasso these animals while riding on the back of the horse, it's truly amazing. And it's just not something that I feel like I ever need to go back to.
I agree. But we finally got to see what it's all about. It was a good activity to bring the fam.
Definitely. It definitely is a good activity for family. But if you have any sensitivity towards animals, I would say don't go because it is a little bit rough.
And your Aunt Mary also brought all the ingredients for us to make pizza from New Jersey, which she did last year when she visited.
It's so good.
Yeah.
It makes such a difference. She brings the dough, she brings the cheese, and she brings the sauce. And we make it in our oven at home and it tastes delicious.
If you've never been to New York, New Jersey, and you've never experienced true New Jersey pizza, you must. I'm not exaggerating when I say the pizza and bagels in Jersey are the best things on earth.
Well, I knew that there was a problem with the rest of the country. When I went to South Carolina, there was like an icebreaker on our team one time. And it was like, what's your favorite pizza place? And everyone on my team was saying Papa John's or Domino's.
No.
And I was looking around in disgust.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't think I've ever even eaten there. I was like, my favorite pizza is Brothers Pizzeria right down my road where the same people have been working there for 25 years. I don't know. You all are not going to know that.
It's just a different experience. So I hope everyone gets a chance to have a true New Jersey pizza
or New York
bagel situation.
Yes. When people tell me they go to Dunkin' Donuts to get a good bagel, I'm like, no, you don't. You don't get a good bagel there.
You know?
Well, we are snobby about it, but we got to have pizza here in Colorado with really good fresh ingredients. I really love that my family always tries to bring a little bit of New Jersey to us, and just having them here and getting time with them are just some of the memories that I think that I'll remember forever. And having Anthony here, this was his first time out in Colorado, 3 years old, happy as could be, and just a trooper the whole weekend. It was really, really fun.
Yeah, it was a great weekend. So I'm very happy they came.
Unfortunately, after they left, I got the stomach bug this past week.
Yeah.
And woof. I don't know if you're watching on camera. I am still not right. I am still very much on the struggle bus. For some reason, I've been getting the stomach bug every year, pretty much since moving out to Colorado. And even before I'm pretty much due for the stomach bug every year. But this one is lasting more days than I would like. I just don't feel right. I feel super weak. I still can't eat anything. And if you know me, you know that food. What did someone you work with say?
Oh, they said, I don't eat to live. I live to eat.
Like, same. So not being able to eat what I want is really hard for me, and I cannot eat anything right now.
Yeah, you've definitely been on the struggle bus a few nights ago now. Woke up at 3 a.m. and sprinted to the bathroom, and you were just vomiting for hours, and I felt terrible. I, knock on wood, am still holding strong.
This is
I
not
am
good,
so
Danielle.
scared. It hasn't got me yet.
We shouldn't even be speaking this close.
I
we
know,
really shouldn't.
but I don't want to exile you. So.
I know. I said to Danielle, I was like, I'll go sleep in our guest bedroom, and you're a sicko. You were like, no, I'll miss you too much. And if that is not true love, also true love is that I was having a time in the bathroom. I won't get into too much of the graphic details, but Danielle helped clean it up. And wow, that is true love. And also probably a death sentence for you that you're getting this stomach bug.
I mean, you couldn't even get out of bed. I wasn't going to make you clean the bathroom.
It was so bad.
You're still struggling.
Yeah, I'm still not feeling great. On top of that, this past weekend was my dad's third death anniversary, and the death anniversary just always knocks me on my butt. I really wasn't thinking about it much the past week, especially with the stomach bug, and then the day came, the 25th, and it just hits and it hurts and knocks me right back down, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it never really gets easier. It's been difficult, and I just try to give myself the space to grieve. And there were a couple moments where I was like, come on, Carolyn, just like pull yourself together. And then I was like, no, this is how this day is going to be. You do such a great job of honoring my dad. And I just like love when people reach out and have stories, and you do such a good job of that, of bringing up memories of him, where people reach out to me and send me a text. My friend Amanda sent me a text about things he used to say to us in softball. And it is so nice when people do that and when people like keep his name alive, but I just don't know if it ever gets any easier. The day-to-day definitely gets easier, but the reminders can just really knock you down. But I also think it's nice to do that too, to have a day to really spend remembering him. We were able to go for a walk, and I like to say that I see my dad in birds, and there was a bird out. We don't have cardinals here in Colorado, but they're very prevalent in New Jersey. But whenever I see a bird with a red head, which we do have here in Colorado, I think it's some kind of finch, but I don't know. I always like to pretend it's my dad. And on a walk this past weekend, we saw one and I looked at it, and in my head I said, if you're my dad, you need to poop. And he pooped right away. That bird pooped right away. And I was like, there he is. That's him.
And that bird was lingering. Like, we were standing there for probably
Yes.
45 seconds just staring, and a bunch of birds went away, and that bird was sticking around.
Yeah. Yeah. He was like, I'm going to poop in solidarity with what you've been doing all this past week. Oh, man. But yeah, it's just hard.
I'm just sorry that January in general is just a really hard month. And to your point, I want you to be able to feel and remember and think of obviously the good times, but also you have to just let yourself feel the sadness. And I know that's not fun, but
yeah, January sucks. Like your grandmother now passing away this month. It's just a rough month. This month in general has been a little bit of a rough time, I think, for a lot of people. I always think that January is the longest month of the year. And yeah, I'll be looking forward to new things happening in February.
Yeah, for sure. But one other thing I want to say, just the things that I will always remember about your dad is...
You're going to make me cry.
I'm sorry. I don't need to say it.
No, say it. This is nice.
First of all, when we first started dating, he made me feel like family immediately. Yeah. And I will hold on to that forever. And he always gave the biggest bear hugs. I just felt like just embraced by a bear whenever he hugged. His random love you texts, which when we first started dating, I was like, did he mean to send this to me? I was so confused. And then randomly he would just always send love you, just out of the blue. He just had this booming voice, and the way he would tell stories and get so animated, and he'd be like, boom, and just like with his hands. Those are some of the things I remember. And yeah.
Thank you. Thanks. He was really something. The last time we talked about him, I said that this podcast, I think, is definitely a direct result of his passing and just me wanting to do something. He just loved sports so much. And in our interview with Frankie last week, they were saying that that's how they connected to their dad. And it was one of the ways that they could. And I could connect to my dad in so many ways, but sports was definitely like the one that held us together. And one that brought us together. Like, we would go to his house all the time to watch big South Carolina games, whatever it was. This podcast is a nice reminder and a nice little tribute to him.
For sure.
Let's get into it.
So something I've been thinking about, I've listened on other podcasts how they do like a listener's corner, or they ask people to call in. We don't have a number for you to call, but we do have an email. So we thought it would be fun for our listeners to email us if they would like to either ask a question or give us feedback about the podcast or comments, anything, just to say hi. I don't know. Like,
to really tell us anything. You bought us drinks at the 99ers.
Yeah. So,
but you don't have to ask about the podcast. You could provide a comment about something about teams, or you could ask us if you want to know about our boring lives. You can ask us personal questions, and if we like the email, we'll read it on the show, share it with our listeners. Yeah, and if this goes well, we'll continue to do it.
It could be fun. So the email address is womenssportsweeklypod@gmail.com.
That's right. Remember that sports has an S at the end, so it's women's with an S, sports with an S, weekly pod. Don't forget the pod @gmail.com. Send us an email. Maybe we'll read it out loud on the pod.
Can't wait. So let's get into the highlight reel for the week.
First, I just want to talk about Naomi Girma. Naomi Girma played for the San Diego Wave, also a member of the U.S. Women's National Team, and she is heading overseas on a $1.1 million transfer fee.
Love that for her.
She is joining Chelsea in the English Women's Super League. Very exciting, a ton of money. However, this transfer fee does not actually go to Naomi Girma. Did you know that?
I had a feeling, and I was going to ask. I didn't like truly look into it, but it goes to the team.
It goes to the team.
Yeah.
Chelsea pays San Diego Wave $1.1 million to receive Naomi Girma, and then they work out their own contract. Although this does not mean Naomi Girma is getting $1.1 million, it does speak to the quality, and the stock is rising on women's players. Other teams are willing to pay a lot of money in order to get a player who they think can make an impact. And I think this will be great for Naomi Girma, although I'm so going to miss her having her in the States, especially with Denver getting a team. I would have loved to see her in person. I do think that she is going to get more recognition playing overseas and having more of an international audience watch her and see the amazing things that she can do. Everyone in the US knows that she is one of the best defenders in the world. I think this is an opportunity for the rest of the world to notice that now. We also, before we get into the deeper highlights, we need to talk about Caitlin Clark and Taylor Swift hanging out at a men's game.
Okay, so we were watching football. Before anything hit the internet, I'm just sitting there on the couch while your family was there. We were all watching together and the Chiefs were on, and they pan to Taylor Swift. And I'm like, oh my God, Caitlin Clark is in the box with Taylor Swift.
It was wild.
Taylor Swift is just reaching over and whispering something in Caitlin Clark's ear. And I'm like, it's just so wild because for months now, you've seen Caitlin Clark has talked about Taylor Swift since she was at Iowa. She has gone to concerts recently. And of course, then she was on Travis and Jason Kelsey's podcast. And I think I said to you after, I was like, I wonder if this will result in her like meeting Taylor Swift.
And you said, I wonder if this will result in Taylor Swift coming to a
game.
Yes.
But I didn't mean the Chiefs game. I meant like a Caitlin Clark game. And then they're just friggin' sitting in the box. Caitlin Clark is also a Chiefs fan.
Yes.
Good for her. That was really cool to see. And
it was wild. And the NFL needs women.
Yeah.
They clearly need star power women at their games in order to attract more people to watch. It was so interesting because we were like, oh my gosh, Taylor Swift and Caitlin Clark. And my 3-year-old nephew's like, where's Taylor Swift? He just like kept asking. He was like, I want to see her.
Because your sister loves Taylor Swift.
So it was really, really cool. And I just love to see this rise of women and women getting the attention that they've for so long deserved. And now like men's leagues need them there, which I love that so much.
Yeah, me too. It was fun.
All right, let's get into some actual women's sports.
So there were, once again, a lot of great basketball games on this week. We will start by covering number 7 Texas versus number 17 Tennessee. Random fact, a few episodes ago, I accidentally said Tennessee was number 2, and I don't think you've caught it because you've never said anything about it.
What?
They were number 12 at the time, and I was listening. Number 2? Yeah, I was listening, and I heard myself say number 2. I was like, oh, that's not right.
I can't believe a listener didn't tell us. Usually the listeners tell us when we're wrong.
Like just like quick, but I caught it because I was listening. I was like, oops, they were number 12 at the time.
I can't believe I didn't catch it.
I know, okay. I didn't even tell you. But anyways, so Tennessee since then had dropped a few ranking. Texas number 7 versus Tennessee number 17. Texas won this game at home 80-76. We will get into it, but one thing I want to mention is this was a We Back Pat game to honor the great Pat Summitt, who I personally looked up to tremendously in high school when she was in her prime and when Candace Parker was playing there. I've talked about my love for Tennessee for so many episodes. Pat Summitt also has great books out there. It's ridiculous how good of a coach. I'm staring at a book on our bookshelf right now. Reach for the Summit is one of the books. She and Gino would always clash heads. Tennessee and UConn was such a good rivalry back in the day. I really love that they still honor Pat Summitt and keep her legacy alive because she was one of the best coaches of all time. So a We Back Pat game means that teams are standing with Pat Summitt in her fight for Alzheimer's disease. She had that and dementia. She eventually passed away from the disease on June 28th, 2016 at the age of 64. I remember watching her on the bench because when she had the disease, they kept her on the bench and you could just tell she was like not really there. And it was really hard to watch those games at that time. But to remember her and her legacy, she was the head coach at Tennessee for 38 years. I like really wonder, I know she'd be in her 70s now, but I'm like, maybe she would have still been coaching. She could have still been coaching into her 70s. And it just breaks my heart. She had a record of 1,098 wins to 208 losses over her 38-year career. She won 8 NCAA championships during that time and 32 combined SEC titles. That is ridiculous. Like I said, just cool to see that they still honor her. And this was at Texas, so it wasn't even at Tennessee. So getting more into this game, current Tennessee head coach, we had talked about when they played LSU, Kim Mulkey made a comment that she hoped Kim Caldwell had the baby on the court. Well, Kim Caldwell has since welcomed her son, Connor Scott Caldwell, so she missed this game. Assistant coach Jenna Burdett, who is in her 4th season coaching aside Caldwell, stepped in as acting coach for this game.
Yes, I didn't know that Kim Caldwell had her baby, and I was like, who is this tiny little human coaching this team? I don't want to diminish anything that Jenna Burdett did in this game because I think she did amazing.
I thought she did really well, yeah.
She looks so young, and I don't like when people make judgments on a person based on how they look, but I was like, oh my gosh, and she did great. So congratulations to her.
Yeah, I thought she coached this game really well. Unfortunately, Tennessee could not pull it off. After this game, their record was 15-4. So going in, they were 15-3. 3 of the 4 losses at the time of recording are against top 20 teams. Vanderbilt is the only unranked team they lost to. All their games were very close that they lost. Between the 4 losses at this time, there's like a 7-point differential of
total.
Yes, total. So all these games have been so close. They started this game out really strong. So Tennessee is really good at full court press on defense. In the first quarter at the start of the game, they were getting a few steals and easy baskets. Texas really had to work to adjust to the press to figure out how to get up the court. Quick fun fact, this was Tennessee's 13th different lineup of the season. Can you believe that?
That's amazing. And I think teams are now adopting this South Carolina mentality where they're making their benches deep.
Yeah.
And they are going to throw at you different combinations. So you really don't know what to expect. And they are adjusting based on the defense and based on what the other team is throwing at them. I think it's a really good strategy.
And the announcer said, as you can see, it doesn't really matter who starts. And that's not to disservice anyone on that team. It just, to your point, shows how deep they are. Tennessee, I really think they could be a top 10 team. They're right there. Yeah. They just need to win those close games because that does make or break a team at that caliber. So after the first quarter, Tennessee was up 22-20. Right from the start, very close. And then by halftime, Texas was up 45-40. So still a very close game. Something that killed Tennessee in the first half, Texas had 11 offensive rebounds compared to Tennessee's 2. And they scored 19 second chance points compared to Tennessee's 0. This was all in the first half. So killer for Tennessee. And they were still in this game. It was still a 5-point game at this point. Texas continued to keep the lead by the end of the third quarter with a score of 62-61. Going into the fourth quarter, continued to be a battle. It was tied at 74 with a minute to go. Taylor Jones, she's a forward on Texas, secured a huge rebound and putback with 46 seconds left off of Madison Booker's shot.
The putback from Taylor Jones was incredible.
Yes.
She was up in the air and put it back in. Very, very cool.
It was like a alley-oop almost, but off a rebound. And Tennessee was able to tie it up again at 76 points. But once again, Madison Booker, sophomore in Texas, also had a big game, answered with a jumper to go back up by 2 with 27 seconds to play. And they were up 78-76. Tennessee had a chance here to score again, but they just did not capitalize.
They didn't have any more timeouts, right?
I don't believe so, but I just feel like the shot, it was an open look. They kicked it out to the 3. To me, I just thought they should have went to the basket. Yeah. It was a 2-point game. It happens. It's very stressful at the end of the game when you're down 2 points.
Yeah. You didn't like that shot. I didn't mind it. I know you always want to go to the basket. It's a higher percentage shot.
They were going to the basket. I'm like, why didn't you just keep going? It was unfortunate. Then they ended up fouling. Roy Harmon secured the win by helping Texas go up by 2 possessions with 3 seconds to go. And that was the game there. Calling out a few top scorers on both teams during this game. Texas sophomore Madison Booker, who we've talked about a ton already this year. She was an incredible freshman last year. She's doing incredible this year. Tamika Catchings during the game mentioned that her numbers are a little down, but all her percentages are up. Mm-hmm. So even though numbers aren't as big as last year, she's being more efficient. She led all scorers with 26 points and added 6 rebounds. She also played all 40 minutes of that game. We've talked about her fitness. She just looks lean and she can just stay in the whole game.
Yeah.
To add to that, 6'4" senior forward Taylor Jones from Texas added 21 points and 14 rebounds for her 6th double-double of the season. I know Madison had 26 points, but when I'm looking at that game, I think Taylor Jones was the key of that game and,
for sure,
and helped Texas win. Tennessee was led by junior guard Ruby Whitehorn, who ended the game with 21 points, and junior forward Z Spearman also added 14 points. Also, shout out, we have talked about celebrities showing up for women's college games across the board this year. Matthew McConaughey was there with his daughter. They kept panning to him. And I just love seeing big names at these games.
Yeah. Yeah, it was awesome. Did you hear what he said after the game?
No.
He said he thought Texas played all right, all right, all right.
I love that. I gotta look that up.
He didn't actually say that.
He didn't?
No.
Why'd you do that?
You know that's from a movie?
Yeah, that's why it's like his signature thing.
Yeah.
So I thought you were being serious. I thought he was just like playing into his character.
No, he didn't actually say that.
Oh my gosh, I was going to wonder why I didn't see that on the internet somewhere. That's so mean. Anyways, moving along. Another highly anticipated game this week, which got moved. The weather across the country is so wacky. Who would have thought South Carolina would have all these issues with the weather that they had to move this game from Thursday to Friday? But they did, and it served. This is a big game that everyone looks forward to each year. This is a rivalry. Last year, LSU and South Carolina got in a huge fight on the court.
Camila Cardoso just decided to shove. It was Flage, right? Just shove Flage to the ground. That was not great.
I don't know if these teams love each other. The rivalry is there. South Carolina packed the arena. South Carolina going into this game was number 2 and LSU was number 5. And South Carolina won 66-56. So it was a pretty low scoring game.
Very low scoring. But before we get into the game, there's a couple things that I need to mention about Dawn Staley. First, she is now the highest paid head coach in the history of NCAA women's basketball after signing a 5-year, $25.25 million contract extension. She is staying in South Carolina through 2030. Great news for us.
Yes.
We love
Claps
it.
All around.
Also, after she signed that contract extension, or I don't know if it was after or before, but she went to a South Carolina men's basketball game and showed up wearing a hat. And usually, I support all of Dawn Staley's fashion choices. This hat, I have a problem with.
I didn't see it.
It's one of those huge hats that people sometimes wear.
Now that you say this, I do remember scrolling on Instagram and seeing a picture of it.
It's like an oversized hat.
Like those foam hats.
It's foam, I guess, but it's made to look like a baseball hat, but
Yes.
it's like 10 sizes too big and you have to put it on your head. And I think it may have just been that she was really, really celebrating that $25 million and was like, I can do whatever I want. I hate those hats. I think you look like Pablo Sanchez from Backyard Baseball, right?
Yeah, that's very true.
But nothing can take Dawn Staley down. She can do whatever the heck she wants because she is rolling in the dough and she is winning on this South Carolina team. But someone needs to explain to me what the appeal is of those hats. I don't like it.
I don't think she was trying to make a fashion statement, that's for sure.
Not with that. Not with that hat.
So getting into this game, this was LSU's first loss of the season. I still can't believe that. They've had quite a few close games that they were able to pull off this season so far. As I mentioned, the fans really just showed up for this game. South Carolina, knocking on wood again, hasn't lost at home in years.
I know.
It's truly amazing. There were 11 lead changes and 3 ties in the game, all of which came in the first half. We looked at each other a few times during that first half and we were nervous. I think Flage came out really strong, and sometimes when a player comes out really strong in the beginning, they kind of fade at the end or they just make hell for the other team, and I was worried.
LSU was key on the rebounds. I think that's what helped them so much in the first half. In the first half, they out-rebounded South Carolina 28-19, and they even actually out-rebounded them the whole game, 51-39. And I think if you're trying to beat South Carolina, rebounding is almost number 1 at the top of the list, and they were able to do that. LSU was able to out-rebound South Carolina. It just didn't prove to be enough.
Yes. Both teams were also on fire in the first quarter, and they ended up cooling down in the second. LSU led 22-21 after shooting 50% as a team in the first quarter. But then they only shot 15% in the second quarter. Like, how does that happen?
Yeah, there were some adjustments made on the South Carolina side for sure.
Yes. South Carolina shot 17.6% from the field in the second quarter, but they still outscored LSU 12-8 in that quarter. So going into halftime, they were up 33-30, still too close for comfort for us.
Overall, this was just a very low scoring game. I'll be very interested to see these teams play again, but let's get into the second half.
Yeah, for sure. So South Carolina was finally able to gain some solid momentum in the middle of the third quarter when they went on an 8-0 run to make the score 45-36. I looked at you at one point. This was the largest lead of the game, and I remember looking at you. I was like, okay, we should be good. And then I was like, actually, LSU has come back in many games. I should just keep my mouth shut.
Yeah. I was like, you just better go walk around this room now and knock on all the wood.
I know. Something important to note is LSU entered the game with the number 3 scoring offense in the country, averaging 90.6 points per game, which is insane, but they only scored 56 points on Friday, which goes to show how well South Carolina played on defense during this game. There were a ton of blocks, steals. South Carolina was not messing around.
No, they look great. Raven Johnson at one point scored a layup.
Oh, yeah.
Turned around, pretended she was going the other way, and then picked off the inbound pass and scored again. And that can really just deflate a team.
Yep.
And the Colonial Life Arena went wild.
Yes, very fun to watch. So the scoring for this game, yes, we talked about it was low scoring. It was also pretty spread out evenly across both teams. No one had a huge game. Junior Flau'jae Johnson and sophomore Michaela Williams led LSU with 13 points each. And senior Anissa Morrow had another double-double, which is now her 93rd in her career.
She is so good on the boards.
Yeah, she's a rebounding monster. I can't even fathom that. I think I had one double my senior year.
Every time we are watching basketball, Danielle's like, why couldn't I be this good?
Oh,
and
all the time.
Danielle, the answer is because you had one double-double.
Never took a charge in college.
Wow.
Yeah, I know.
I definitely never had a double-double.
Never?
No. The only way I could get a double-double if they were counting points and fouls and they let me foul 10 times.
Yeah, I was a scorer. My rebounding, I was shooting threes, so I wasn't getting much rebounds.
No long rebounds?
Yeah. What do I always say? Shoot first, last, and always. That is the motto here. But yeah, one day, maybe in my second life, I'll go to the WNBA.
Your second.
Anyways, South Carolina was led by freshman Joyce Edwards, who had 14 points, and senior Sanaya Fagan had 12 points. This is probably the most comfortable and confident I've seen Sanaya Fagan on the court.
And we need her.
Yeah.
We need her so badly. So I'm so happy that she's stepping into this role, and I hope it just continues to grow. We need someone big and physical down low because we know who's coming. South Carolina, if they continue to play how they're playing, we're going to see UCLA again. And we need someone to go up against Lauren Betts. And we had that last year in Camila Cardoso. It's not as clear this year who that is for the Gamecocks. And I'm like, Sanaya Fagan, you can be it. And she looked good.
Yeah, and Joyce Edwards, I got to give her credit too.
Yes.
She's only a freshman and she looked really good out there too. So between the two of them, I think they could do it. I don't even think we've talked about the fact that Ashlyn Watkins tore her ACL and is out for the season, which is why unfortunately we have not said her name. So these two, they have no choice but to step up.
And Chloe Kitts is good down low, but she's not she's
more of a small forward.
Yes, she's not going to be your person down low getting physical with a Lauren Betts.
Right. This matchup is most likely going to happen again.
I think if South Carolina continues to play well, LSU plays well, we may see them in the SEC championship or at some point in the SEC tournament. I also think that it was pretty crazy that LSU was only ranked 5 when they were undefeated and everyone else above them had a loss except UCLA. I just think that's interesting. I don't think LSU always gets the attention that they deserve. They're a good team, and I think they're only going to get better as the season goes on, so they'll be a fun one to watch over time.
Yes. That is it for college basketball. We're going to switch over to tennis, your favorite thing to talk about, and the Australian Open.
The Australian Open is here and now it's gone because the finals already happened. But we'll talk about this a little bit because Madison Keys, an American, beat number 1 in the world, Aryna Sabalenka, to win the Australian Open. Madison Keys was ranked number 19 in the world. She won the first and third sets to win her first major title. On the other side, Sabalenka was seeking to become the first woman in 26 years to win 3 consecutive Australian Open titles. So that is rough.
I mean, both outcomes are good for different reasons, but damn.
I know. And that would be legend status. To win 3 in a row, a three-peat, no matter what sport you're playing, you are a legend if you're able to do that. Madison Keys takes it out of her hands.
Wow. Tough. Happy for the American, but yes. I'm kind of sad for Sabalenka.
For sure.
Did her coaches have the tiger on their head?
He had it on his head again. He did. The first set was all Madison Keys. She won it 6-3. And then the second set was all Aryna Sabalenka. She won it 6-2. In the first set, Madison Keys was playing her best tennis. In the second set, Aryna Sabalenka was playing her best tennis. And then in the third set, they were both playing really good tennis at the same time, which makes for a really great match. Mm-hmm. So in the third set, they held serves, which means that when Madison Keys was serving, she won that game. And when Aryna Sabalenka was serving, she won that game until 5-5. Does that make sense? You know, when we play tennis, when one of us is serving, we usually lose that game.
Oh, yeah.
So in professional tennis, the people who are really good at it, it's an advantage to be the server. So if you're on serve, it means that you win the games that you're serving.
Gotcha. Okay.
So they did that back and forth until 5-5. And Madison Keys actually won her service game to make it 6-5. So then Aryna had a chance to serve to tie it up and force a tiebreaker.
Wow.
But Madison Keys in that last game just dominated. And it was like Aryna Sabalenka couldn't even catch her breath. Madison Keys just took that game away from her, broke her, and won 7-5 in the third set. She became the first woman since Serena Williams in 2005 to defeat a number 1 and a number 2 seeds at the Australian Open. Madison Keys had a hellish road to get to the finals. She beat number 2 Iga Swiatek, and then she beat number 1 Aryna Sabalenka on top of beating numerous other people along the way.
Good for her. I'm excited to see what she does in the future too.
And she's 29 years old. Madison Keys turned pro at 14 years old. She is now 29. It's just a testament to putting in the work. She mentioned that she made a bunch of changes over the past couple of years. She changed her racket, she changed her service motion, and she just has stayed the course and then ends up winning a Grand Slam. She had been to one other Grand Slam final at the US Open 8 years ago when she lost to Sloane Stephens. I was watching the match and then I was in tears after. Both players were actually in tears after the game. Aryna Sabalenka obviously so distraught after losing such a great match. They were playing so well, and then it was just like this sneaky little grab at the end. She slammed her racket a bunch of times after the match, which I love.
Yeah.
You're mad, and I get it, and you should slam your racket. And it didn't take away too much from Madison Keys. It was just like, I'm pissed. But then she got it together, and in her speech afterwards, which I always think is so funny that they make both the loser and the winner give a speech in tennis, but she was joking with her team, and she was like, as usual, guys, and she looked over at her team and she was like, this is all your fault. And she was joking the whole time, and she was like, but seriously, I love you and blah blah blah, thanks for everything, like I don't want to see you all for a week. And it was great. She was very complimentary of Madison Keys, but just super cool to see an American win the Australian Open, and super cool to see someone who's a 19th seed and who has been playing for so long finally get their first Grand Slam.
Yeah.
And this is the start, right? The Australian Open is the first Grand Slam of the tennis season. And so hopefully she can continue to build on this momentum throughout this year.
Awesome. With that, we will get back into basketball, but a different type of basketball. We have to talk about Unrivaled.
We weren't able to talk about it last week, so let's get into our thoughts on Unrivaled.
Yeah. My initial thought is the marketing in general, just fantastic to leading up to it. I love the setup of the court and the lighting, and it just feels fun to me. And like, I want to be there.
For sure. And it's different, right?
Yeah.
They didn't try to recreate anything. They just did something different. And I think it's really working.
I love to see the different matchups of players playing together. We were watching the other day, and Arike Gumbawale was getting really pissed off after the game. And I love that they're still bringing that fierceness to the games. They're not here to mess around. These women are so competitive, and it's coming out somehow even more in these Unrivaled games. We on Instagram on our account posted a bunch when Skylar Diggins 2 weeks ago hit the game-winning shot, and her like out-of-body experience that she had after the game.
I love when really pretty people make themselves look ugly. I love it.
She looked possessed in the pictures they got of her making that. I'm not even gonna do it because I just won't do that to myself. No, I won't do it to myself.
So we can screenshot it and post it on our socials. It was so funny.
And like Arike going at the refs and the game winners, these women just go nuts, and I just love it. Kayla McBride hit a game winner, and she was doing some weird dance. Anyways, talk a little bit about the structure so people understand why there's all these game winners happening.
First of all, they're playing on a smaller court, which is good because they're going back and forth. They're not playing on a half court, but it is smaller. However, some people are really struggling in this. It is a lot of running. It is a lot of conditioning. It is really exposing people and their fitness. What I will say is that it's still early in this Unrivaled season. I think people's conditioning is going to improve. And what I also will say is that after the WNBA season, people probably took a much needed break, and now they're getting thrown into 3-on-3, which is just conditioning times 1,000, and it's showing for some of the players. But they are playing on a smaller court.
And I love the back and forth. I don't personally like half court 3-on-3. I love this setup.
Yeah, I agree. They're also doing 7-minute quarters for the first 3 quarters. So lower number of minutes, but the games are long. But they have this interesting fourth quarter rule that I love. So in the fourth quarter, they add 11 points to the team with the higher score at the end of the third.
Say that again. They don't add points.
Okay. At the end of the third quarter, they look at both teams and they look at who has the higher score. So, for example, if the Lunar Owls were up 52-45, they would look at the Lunar Owls score, and they would add 11 points to it. So 52 plus 11 is...
I don't know why you didn't just go with like a 50. I was like...
52 plus 11 is 63, okay? So that is a score that each team needs to get to in the first...
Tongue twister.
In the fourth quarter. Does that make sense?
So how I would explain it is if the Lunar Owls had 50 points and they were up, the score to win would be 61.
Correct.
I don't know why you gave yourself hard numbers there. We're not math teachers, people. Both are trying to reach
that magic number.
The plus 11 of the current team that is up.
I know it sounds confusing, but it's really not.
Just Google it.
Just watch, because they put the score that you need to get on the screen in the fourth quarter. But what I love about this is that every game ends in a game winner. So everyone's pressing to get those 11 points in the fourth quarter, or more if you didn't have that many points, or more if you were
or more for the team that is behind.
Yes. Thank you. Oh my God.
It is the virus still playing with your brain.
I
have not eaten
so
enough.
Unwell right now.
I don't even know how we're doing this right now.
I need to go back to bed and eat some more broth. But anyway, I love that every game ends on a game winner. It has been incredibly fun to watch. I think the Laces are the team for me that I'm like, whoa, they are scary good. So last Friday when they played, they gave Team Vinyl their first loss. Jackie Young wasn't even playing for the Laces, but they have Kayla McBride on the team, who is so good on this 3-on-3 format.
She's just a monster of a player.
So good. And then they have Tiffany Hayes, who's becoming my favorite player in this league to watch. They have Alyssa Thomas, just a beast. And then Steph Dolson and Kate Martin, who put in great time and great minutes the entire time. 3-on-3 is such a different game from 5-on-5. So it's so interesting to see who does great in it and who does great in the WNBA and then who does great in both. And that's really been what I've been enjoying watching. Also, like I said before, curious to see as the season goes on how players make adjustments and how they continue to grow their game. So I've just really loved all of this. On top of that, the content is top notch. Marina Mabry is not playing right now due to a calf injury, but she's making food for Dejanay Carrington. She is putting on horrible dance moves on the internet. It seems like there is a lot of recruiting going on because free agency time is happening. And honestly, Satu Sabali is lighting it up for the Phantom.
They call, prior to her injury, if you haven't watched the WNBA prior to this last year, her nickname is the Unicorn. Like, she is just a sick player.
She's so good. Natasha Cloud, I heard her offering up her apartment to Satu Sabali if she would come over to the Phoenix. So it just seems like a really good time that these players are having. They're joking around with each other. Teams are coming in and they're booing the other team while they're practicing. I just would love to be part of it.
Same. I can only imagine the conversations that they are having.
Yeah, and so much more is what I also like to imagine.
Yeah.
What else is happening behind the scenes with over 50% of them being queer? And that's only the ones who admit it. So yeah, it's got to be fun.
Can we plan a trip to Miami?
Yeah.
Once that.
I can't go right now, but once I can get a solid food down my mouth, I'd be happy to go.
That could be your present to me.
Okay. For what?
Just existing.
Yeah. For cleaning up the bathroom. I'll get right on that.
Just existing. I think we need a vacation.
For sure. Let's get into what we're looking forward to this week. Danielle, what do you got?
More basketball. NCAA women's basketball. Number 15, Oklahoma is playing number 5, LSU on Thursday, January 30th at 7 p.m. on ESPN2. How about you?
I am looking forward to the PWHL. The Ottawa Charge are taking on the Montreal Victoire on Wednesday, January 29th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and you can watch on YouTube.
Canadian matchup.
A Canadian matchup.
Should be a good game.
It should be because they're both near the top of the table. So we'll see what happens. Now it's time for me to go to bed. So that's it for this week. We will see you next week on Women's Sports Weekly. In the meantime, watch women's sports, rate and subscribe to the pod on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. Share the podcast with your friends. Keep sending us topics you want us to cover on Instagram at Women's Sports Weekly Pod. Send us an email. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Bye-bye now.